everyone. Happy Friday evening. Welcome to my channel. My name is Marissa Price. I am a Black woman social worker, healer, freelance coach for Black women, helping us get free of toxic environments, whatever those may be, reclaim our inner peace, our sense of self, and tap back into our power. And so, this space is a safe space for Black women processing what has happened to us, working through some of the things we're going to be talking about tonight, the uncertainty of 2025. So, if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. Please comment down below if anything resonates with you. And if you're live with us tonight, please introduce yourselves in the chat so we can say hello. But yes, I'm here with a lovely guest tonight, Coach Yolanda. I will pass it over to her to introduce herself.
Hello, good evening. Thank you, Marissa, for this opportunity. We were just chit chatting before we went live, and I was saying how healing this is for me. I am Coach Yolanda. I'm a certified international spiritual life coach. I have had a wellness business since 2017. I started out as a massage therapist and an energy healer and decided to be more intentional in my work. That led me to the Inner Visions Institute for Spiritual Development, founded by Yanda Van Zant, where I became a certified spiritual life coach. And since then, it has been my honor to facilitate the healing that comes through loving ourselves authentically, loving ourselves deeply and profoundly. It is my honor to support individuals who are on a life's journey to rediscover what loving yourself really, really feels like. It's my belief that we all became pulled into existence through love, and somewhere along the way, we may have forgotten, we may have started to believe other stories about ourselves, about our existence. And so my work is based in love and to pull each and every single one of us back into that state of being where we are loving ourselves fully. I am also a certified birth doula, lactation consultant, meditation guide, and all of the other things that I love to do. I am a mother, a grandmother, and I consider myself to be a good friend. A good friend.
Mm, I love that. I love that. And yeah, loving ourselves, right?
Mm,
Especially in this climate, that has been like one of my main goals, right? Especially after the election results and the
mhm.
uncertainty. It's like, how do you tap back into the power of love that exists within you versus seeking it outside of ourselves, which a lot of us are conditioned to do? So I do want to ask, like, how, if you feel like you don't love yourself, how can you even begin to recognize the fact that you, like you said, you were created in love, you came here by way of love? How do you start to tap into that energy?
Well, I think we have to become more aware of how we speak to ourselves. You know, the that commentary that goes on in our head, the places and the spaces that we put ourselves in. Many of us have come to our own conclusion about healing because of a state of overwhelm, exhaustion, or just not satisfied with life. And we all have to take ownership of, why am I where I am? Is it
Mm-hmm.
because I have forgotten how much I love myself, how great and wonderful I am? Why am I putting myself in places, in spaces, around people? Why am I speaking to myself and doing particular things, whether it's conscious or unconscious? Why are these things current in my life? And this is not to blame ourselves. This is not to further cause damage, but to take a deep look at, if I am not loving myself in the way that I deserve, how can I expect anybody else to do it? And just as you said, we have a tendency, because we're human, we have a tendency
Mm-hmm.
to look externally for validation. Do people like me? Do people love me? How many people like me? How many people love me? Why am I not in the relationships that I want to be in? All of those things. And that doesn't just mean romantic relationships, it could be your
Yeah.
family relationships, your friendships, anywhere you are interacting with another human. We are more likely to dissect those relationships than we are the relationship that we have with ourselves. Sometimes we'll leave that
Mhm.
last. Sometimes we won't even think about it. And for those of us who are on the type of spiritual journey that includes acknowledgement of a higher power or a higher energy source, wherever you are in your relationship with yourself is exactly where you are in your relationship with that higher power. It really is the same relationship. And oftentimes we pour so much love into the idea of a higher power and we leave ourselves out. It's
Mm,
like
mhm.
if this is a reciprocal relationship, if this is a relationship where I am receiving, I am giving, why would we leave ourselves out? Because we're human. And because,
Yeah.
as I said earlier, as we come into existence, we forget, and sometimes other people help us out along the way in forgetting just
Mhm.
how magnificent we are. And most of the time it's because we've all forgotten, and here we are interacting with one another, all of us forgetting just how glorious we are, trying to understand why we're feeling the way that we feel, trying to figure out why do we feel so depleted, why are these relationships not as satisfying as I would like for them to be. And ultimately it's because none of us is loving ourselves in the way that we used to.
Mm. The way
And
that we
I
used to. Mhm.
emphasize the way that we used to.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know of anyone that can go back and think about the day of their birth. You can hear stories from those that were there. But as a birth doula and as someone who has witnessed birth over and over again, what I now know to be true is that when we come into this world not knowing, not speaking, not understanding where we are, there is this certain calmness that happens with
Mhm.
newborns. Like imagine if somebody plopped you into a foreign country, you have no money, you have no clothing, you cannot
Yeah.
speak the language, you don't know, you would be terrified. Newborn babies, nope.
Mm.
There's just this level of
Mhm.
expectation that this is a new experience for me and someone is going to take care of me. And if I feel as though someone is not taking care of me, I will cry out and then they will respond. I mean, how much in love with your more in love with yourself could you actually be where you have a
Wow.
certainty,
Mhm.
without even being able to see these figures, these blobs, just this understanding that I'm going to be taken care of.
Mhm.
Someone is going to be there at the other end of my cry. And then the
Wow.
power that happens when the cry is answered, it's like, okay, so this is what I do to get my needs met.
Mhm.
And I will continue to do this for the rest of my life until I learn some language and then other things start to happen. And, the other side of that is sometimes, we cry out and no one answers. And then we start
Mhm.
to learn,
Yeah.
oh, I'm not as important as I thought I was.
Yeah.
Or maybe the nurturing that all humans or all beings are entitled to doesn't happen. And then that message starts to become clear. Oh, I'm not as important as I thought I was. I'm not being loved in the way that I know that I deserve. It
Right.
happens so early, so early in our existence. It shouldn't really be confusing to any of us why we have the difficulties and the challenges that we do in loving ourselves. Because there's a whole lot of unlearning
Oh,
to have
yes.
to to
Mhm.
have to swim through, dissect, and tear apart. But the beautiful thing is we have the capacity to do it.
We
It may be a
do.
lifelong journey, but we do have the capacity to do it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think
Thank you
that's
for
one of
that.
the most exciting things about life, that we have the capacity to love ourselves greater and greater every single day if we choose to. Doesn't mean that there's not challenges, but if we wake up every day with the intention, I'm going to love myself greater than I did yesterday, and get about the business of doing that and figuring out what that looks like.
Yeah.
And as we were saying earlier, knowing when to say no, knowing when to say yes, and trusting how that feels in your body.
Mhm.
uh, I mean, a good no, whew,
Ooh,
is
yes.
a good no. When you are standing on your principles and you,
Uh-huh.
oh my goodness, sometimes that feels better than any yes you could ever hear.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. Thinking about when's my next opportunity to have a good no. Like just waiting for someone to ask me something that goes against my principles, goes against my value system, and I can clearly and definitively say no.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Whew. Now that's loving yourself.
I love
Um,
that.
yeah.
I love that. Do you want to look in the chat real quick? I see Tajay, hello. Hi, Marissa and Coach Yolanda. Excited to hear both of your wonderful perspectives tonight. Thank you both for the safe space. Of course. Thank you for being here and thank you for this. Yes. Hi, Dr. Crystal. Yes, so glad to catch you live again. Habari Ghani. Yes, happy Kwanzaa. Yes, thank you for that. Yes, happy Kwanzaa.
Habarjani.
Yes. Maya Spikes, hello.
Hi,
Always good to
Maya.
see you here. Thank you for joining. Rose, hello. Yes. Yes, Coach Yolanda is all the things that matter. Absolutely. You have amazing guests on this channel. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And yes, hello and welcome. Welcome. I do want to ask you about transitioning off of YouTube and moving to a private community. I want to ask you just like the basis of that decision, the process of transitioning into the Evolve
Mhm.
community, which I will link in the chat if you'd like to join. And just, yeah, I feel like social media has become a lot, especially ooh, this past year. And me
Mhm.
entering into entrepreneurship, having to be on social media all the time. So just, yeah, just your basis for that decision to transition off of YouTube going into 2025.
Well, I never really envisioned myself having a social media presence. It actually
Hmm.
was a challenge that my business coach posed to me in 2022. Um, and if you challenge me to do something, I'm going to do it whether I really want to or not. But I am grateful. I'm very, very grateful for that challenge because it allowed me to see the possibility of connection. You know, we were coming out of the pandemic, um, but I have to say that during the pandemic, Coach Yolanda was working. You know, I was doing a lot of virtual work, but I was also doing some in person work. I know we weren't supposed to be meeting in person, but Coach Yolanda was meeting, you know, one on one with people. And so for me, the pandemic wasn't really it didn't push me to social media as it did many people. You know, for a
Hmm.
lot of individuals, social media became the space that they could continue their work or begin work. And, you know, since that time, it has exploded and transformed into something that I don't think anyone ever imagined. And so, starting the YouTube channel, although it was a challenge that I didn't really want to do. I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the individuals that I've been able to meet because of it. But if I am 100% honest, and I always want to be 100% honest, it's never really aligned with who I desire to be. And I
Hmm.
know that um, if my heart is not 100% in something, I'm not going to give as much as I know I can give. Um, and so the decision to come off of YouTube was number one, because it didn't really align with who I desire to be in the way in which I'd like to work. I love intimate spaces. And in
Hmm.
many ways, YouTube for me feels like Central Park. I'd rather be, you know,
Yeah.
in the local park around, around the corner. Um, and so for those who have been able to master social media, my rap is off because it does take a
Mhm.
lot of commitment. It does take a lot of intention. You really need to, and I know that so many people make it look effortless, but it's not. It really
No.
commands a lot of time and attention, and that's just not where I would like for my energy to be. And I'm transitioning from a lot of different things, and so the YouTube channel next Sunday will be the last Mama Meditations on YouTube. I probably will leave the channel up for a little while, but if I'm going to pour my time, my energy, my focus, my work into something, I would love for it to be in a place, in a space that I can call my own, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And again, we were just talking about this, walking away from things even when they're good. YouTube has
Yep.
been very good to me. It has afforded me the opportunity to reach people that I probably never would have been able to reach. And yet, and still, I know it doesn't align with the vision that I have for myself. So saying no and walking away, it's not difficult. It's not going to be
Mm-hmm.
difficult for me to do. Um, but I am grateful. I'm absolutely grateful for the time and the space. You know, we were able to do inner child healing. We were able to talk about personal power. It has been healing for me, and I trust that it has been healing for others. The feedback has been phenomenal. But we are walking into something different and something greater and something uncertain. You know, as we're talking about preparing our spirits
Mm-hmm.
for uncertainty, all of this is uncertain for me. All of it is uncertain, but I'm excited. I'm excited to create a community, an intentional community where individuals can feel supported and loved and heard and seen. And, you know, sometimes that can get lost on social media,
Mm-hmm.
because it's
Yeah.
so expansive, because it's so large. Sometimes, even when I'm doing the mama meditations, it doesn't feel like I'm speaking to everyone that I want to speak to because of time, because of just the way the platform is, you know, presented. Um, I'm much more bare feet and no makeup than I am,
Yes.
you know, going to be seen by lots of people. So I'm excited about that as well. To
I love
really
that.
feel at home
Ooh.
and to not feel pressured. Um, I think there is an unwritten pressure for so many of us where we see other people may have success on social
Mm-hmm.
media, and that might be the, you know, the bar. It's like, oh, I would love to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to have that kind of pressure at all
Mm-hmm.
either. You know, there was a time that I had a TikTok channel, and I made a post. I woke up the next day and it had 30,000 comments, and I said, "Oh no, that's too much. It's way too much." But that's the way, you know, it is designed to work. And I'm like, am I supposed to
That's
respond
true.
to all these people? Now what? Am I supposed to do another post? It was too much pressure. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't, no, no. I leave that to the people who are able to do that,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
and do it well. And so many, like you, and so many others, you do it well. So I, you, I'll go where I can be who I desire to be, um,
Mm-hmm.
and not feel like I have to be a particular way for the masses, so to
Right.
speak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's a struggle. It's a struggle like social media. I've had those same thoughts. Even
Hmm.
growing up, like being in middle school when MySpace was first introduced.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
just like
Yes.
the stress that that brought into my life that did not exist beforehand, right? And really like kind of contrasting that,
Hmm.
like seeing how social media has grown, like you said, especially after the pandemic began. A lot of us turn to social media to connect with other people, but it's just become like so
Hmm.
overwhelming and energy draining that I've had those same thoughts like, do I
Hmm.
really want to continue to do this? Right? And it's like,
Yeah, and I recognize it
mm-hmm,
for, my own, I get to the point sometimes where I'm scrolling, 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 and an hour has gone by. It's like, wait,
mm-hmm,
that's not how you want to spend your time. I came off of Facebook back in May, my personal Facebook, and it
mm-hmm,
wasn't the first time I had done that. I had done it before and then jumped back on. But this time it felt like a clean break. It really felt like I was no longer obligated to post, to comment, to, to engage in that way when I prefer to engage one on one or in a group where we can say whatever it is we want to say. If I want to cuss in the
mm-hmm,
evolved community because I feel like it's warranted, I want to be able to do that without anyone coming along and flagging it and say, "Oh no, you can't say that." And I
mm-hmm,
see so many
mm-hmm.
creators coming up against that type of censorship, where even if
Yes.
it's not, language, it could be a topic, a very important topic that people need to hear, and it gets buried because it doesn't, or someone doesn't like what you're saying, and so and you see the nastiness that happens. um, I have a personal story of people just making harmful, nasty comments online. Um, and so when I see other people going through that, it just it's so unnecessary and
Mm-hmm.
just not something that I want to be a part of, particularly if the individuals who are responsible for making sure that those kind of things don't happen don't really do a good job at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking to you,
Yes.
Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, it's true. It's so true.
Where people can say horrendous, horrific things and destroy people
Mm-hmm.
mentally and emotionally. Yeah, that's just
Yeah.
not something that I desire to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
But I also recognize the power that it has. Like I said, there are times when I might go online, and the next thing you know, an hour has gone by. I'm like, oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even realize that so much time has passed, and I'm just looking at, you know, silliness.
It's true.
um,
It's true.
so, so that's one of the reasons why I started the Evolve community, because I do believe that we can socialize in a sacred way. I do believe that we can socialize in ways that uplift us and support us, um, and provide what I think the intention was in the beginning. I know for many of us, the pandemic was very scary. We felt isolated, and social media provided an opportunity for us to connect with one another, support one another. But I don't know that it is still doing that. And I'm sure it is
Mm-hmm.
in some places and spaces. Um, but I also see the harm that is happening. Um,
Yeah,
and I'm
absolutely.
choosing to not be a part of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do want to read a few comments from the chat. John Howell says, "Hi, Yolanda. Haven't
Mhm.
talked in a while." John and Jerry Howell, welcome.
Oh my goodness! I was just thinking about them. Oh my goodness!
Thank you for joining. Princess K says, "Thank you all so much for this message. So timely, so necessary. You're so welcome. Thank you for being here." Um, yes, Asia, Simone. Yes, you want to be real. Yes.
Hi, Deja.
So very true. Yes. Thank you both so very much for presenting and offering this content. You're so welcome. Thank you for being here, Lynn Bob Jones. Thank you. I do want to ask,
Yes.
as we approach 2025, a lot of us are feeling this like weight of
Mm.
uncertainty of what we're headed into. Just any spiritual practices or grounding exercises that we can implement as we're heading into the inauguration, right? All the things that we're seeing probably
Mhm.
coming down the pike, but preparing our spirits for what we should expect in 2025.
Mhm. So, first and foremost, let's put in our mind that time is a construct. The calendar is just to keep us on task. We shouldn't really feel the pressure of it's a new year, so now I got to do all of these things, or it's a new year, now I got to stop doing all of those things. It can be helpful for planning purposes, but let us not succumb to the pressure of a new year, meaning we throw everything away. We don't know what's going to happen. Now, I will acknowledge that we have no idea, particularly for those of us who are here in the United States of America. I don't know how united they are.
Mm-hmm.
However, as we were talking earlier, it's been a couple of weeks since the election. We've had some time to settle into, okay, this is what it is. And for me, I am challenging myself to look at everything as a spiritual opportunity. No matter what is going on, the chaos, the noise, I am going to look at everything as a spiritual opportunity. Here is an opportunity for me to love myself more. Here is an opportunity for me to support other women, other individuals who may be feeling the way that I'm feeling. This is an opportunity for all of us to get closer. This is an opportunity for us to see what we are made of. This is an opportunity for us to say, you think you had us, but you don't.
Mm.
This is an opportunity for us to rise to the occasion as we always have. We were just talking about this. There has never been a time in history where we have not figured it out. It is not going to stop now. As a matter of fact, it is in times of adversity where we have not only figured things out, but created new things, created communities that may not have existed, but for the fact that we were in situations where we needed to come together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about the social programs that have been started because we recognized that no one was going to take care of us. So we're like, we got to take care of ourselves. I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking of the organizations that have gotten started because we recognize that people were not going to be fair in their admission practices. So we're like, all right, we'll just do it ourselves. This is what we have always done. And so if we are looking at everything, every adversity, everything as an opportunity,
I think we may have some Wi-Fi issues. Not sure if it's on my end. Give us just a second.
this is not going the way that I had planned or that I had desired. So now I got to come up with another plan. During the pandemic, I was calling myself the pivot princess because it was like, oh, I thought I was going to be doing one thing. Now I got to figure out how to do something else. And I know we're tired of that. I know we are tired of always feeling like we're behind the eight ball and now we've got to scramble to figure things out. But that is what opportunity is. Sometimes opportunity is given to you, sometimes you have to take it. And so for me, I am in the headspace where I'm going to take and create opportunity wherever I can. I'm not going
Mm.
to just be stagnant and say, oh, well, they're not playing fair, so this won't happen for me. Because guess what? They've never played fair.
That part, that's true.
They've never played fair. So this really is no different. We've been here before. I know we wanted to think that things were going to be different, and in some ways they are. In some ways they are. I believed early last year I talked about this is the energy. This is the time of rising feminine energy. it
Mhm.
still is the time for rising feminine energy. It may mean we got to work a little harder. It may mean we got to shout a little louder. It may mean, as we said earlier, we got to say no more often than we have in the past.
Yeah.
But one thing I know we will always do is figure it out. And I know that we are tired. So one of the other things that goes hand in hand with that is we got to rest. We have got to
Mm.
rest. We have got to prioritize resting our minds, resting our bodies, and resting our spirits.
Yes.
We cannot
Mhm.
feel like we've got to be the savior for everyone else and not do it for ourselves. We cannot afford to do that anymore.
No.
And so I
No.
said to you just today, someone came up to me with a question that they could have easily answered themselves. I just looked at them. Like, I'm not going
Mhm.
to even respond because I trust that you will figure it out. That is probably going to be my answer for most people when they start to ask me, what should I do about this? I'm trusting that you will figure it out
That's it.
and go
Yeah.
on about my business. And go on about my
Mhm.
business. But I had to recognize that there was this thing that kicked in if I saw a problem or somebody was, having an issue, this thing kicked in with, oh, I got to solve that. Oh, I have the
Mhm.
remedy for that. Oh, I no. Mm-mm. No. No, 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 no,
Mhm.
no. We cannot afford to burn ourselves out because if we burn ourselves out, then there will be no spiritual opportunities for you. How are you going to rise to the occasion when you can't even get up off the floor because
Ooh.
you've pushed yourself into
Wow.
overwhelm, thinking for other people, fearing for other people? I think if we all were to sit down with a piece of paper and just be very, very honest and say to ourselves, how many people am I thinking for on a day-to-day basis? Where I am making things easier for someone else, where I am coming up with solutions for other people. Now, granted, if you have a family, you may be thinking for your children, thinking for, you might be a caregiver to your parents. Of course, we are going to do those things. But if we really, really examine our day to day lives, I think many of us would see that we are thinking for, doing for, and managing so many other people's lives. And then ours just gets left. We cannot afford to do that. And that is one of the reasons why, for me, community is so important. Listen, she already came up with a list. She's thinking for her boss, your family, your partner, your friends. Listen, it is the truth. It is the
Yeah.
truth. And when we start telling ourselves the truth, we will recognize that we are operating in this automatic pilot of I got to take care of everyone. I've got to think for, even when you're driving down the street, you're thinking for the car behind you, you're thinking for the car in front of you, you're thinking, you know what I mean? It's like let me put my car in a particular space so that this guy that's behind me doesn't, like, we're always constantly giving, giving, giving,
Mhm.
giving, 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 giving. you know, if your child comes to you and says, "Oh, we're having a Christmas party at school," here you are baking cupcakes at 2 in the morning and doing team too much because you want to
Mhm.
be that super mom, you want to be that super partner, we want to. And I'm not saying
Mhm.
abandon everyone, abandon ship, but there's got to be some more balance where we are thinking
Right.
about ourselves because we will be ill prepared if we're so overwhelmed. How are we ever going to say, okay, 2025 is going to be the year that I do A, B, C, D? How are we ever going to get to that part if everybody else's stuff is taking up all of the space, taking up all of the mental space, taking up all of the energetic space? It is okay to say no. As I said to a colleague today, I'm trusting you're going to figure that out. And I walked away. Like, That is my, I gave you a response. That is my response. How do I do
Mhm.
this? What do I do? But I trust you will figure it out because I know you to be a competent individual. I know you're going to figure it out. Have a blessed day.
Mhm.
Well, what do we do about this? I don't know. What do we do? What do we
Mhm.
do? I'm going to be
Mhm.
just as clueless as everybody. What do we do?
Yeah.
What do we do? And so, some of the things that I am doing is telling myself the truth that in many of the interactions that I have with other people, I take on more than they even ask me to. Somebody asks me for a pen, I'm gonna, find not just a pen, I'll get you a notebook, and I'm probably gonna, you know, tell you how to reset the password on your computer. It's like it's too much.
Mhm.
Ooh, I
Mhm.
love that. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it.
Mhm.
How many times, I have had to catch myself from doing something. I'm like, why am I doing this? This is not even under my purview because I saw something that needed to be done. And I'm like, somebody has to do it. That somebody does not have to be you.
Ooh. Yes.
That somebody does not always have to be us. And then the other reason for getting that in check is you never know when you are disrupting someone's opportunity to learn something. If we consistently and constantly come to other people's rescue all of the time, how are they supposed to learn and manage for themselves? There may be a spiritual opportunity for them that you might be disrupting because you want to do all of the stuff. So let's rest our minds. Let's not think so much about all of the things that other people have to do that need to be done and that we feel like we have to do it. And that can take some time, particularly if you've been doing it for a long time. And I know, Marissa, you and I have had conversations about we could go all the way back to our childhood
Mhm.
where we were doing things that were beyond our capacity as children.
Yes.
Given responsibility at an early age sets you up for continuing that behavior in adulthood. So, if
Mhm.
you were the oldest child, the eldest child in your family, and it was your responsibility to make sure that your siblings were in line, you might have been doing this since you were 10.
Yeah.
If you had an experience where maybe one of your caregivers was not well, and here you are at 12 years old being a nursemaid or, in some capacity, taking care of others. I think I've shared before, it was my job at 8 to spend time with our next door neighbor. We had an elderly next door neighbor, and it was my responsibility at 8 years old to go sit with her to make sure
Mm.
that and I'm like, when I think back on that, I'm like, what was my 8-year old self going to do if this woman fell, if she had a medical
Right.
emergency, if the house caught on fire? That level of responsibility, but many of us have that experience where, as children,
Mhm.
and we talk about all this time, how many children, how many little girls for Christmas got a kitchen,
Oh,
a mop, a
yes.
broom,
Mhm.
right?
A baby
My
doll, right.
granddaughter got a baby doll. Like, she's a whole mother. She is 4 and she is a whole mother. And we're telling her, Joshua, you better take care of that baby. The baby started crying. We're like, you better stop that baby from crying. She's a whole mother at 4.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
for many of us, without even recognizing it, we have been taking care of others our entire lives.
Yeah.
It's so automatic, we may not even recognize it. So I would offer that everyone take some time and really think about how many people are you taking care of? How many people are you thinking for, setting things up for? And it doesn't matter if you're being paid for it or not, because I think we
Mhm.
would all agree that most of us are not being compensated financially in the way that we should in terms of the care and the concern that we are giving to others. And once you come up with an idea of how many people, maybe on a daily basis, just take one day out of the week and think about who you're thinking for, who you're doing for, whether it's your, occupation or not. Where do you fall in that list? And so if we
Mhm.
are preparing ourselves for a new experience, 2025 is a new experience where there are a lot of uncertain things. We better be certain about where our energy is going. We better be certain about where our focus is, where our time is, and why we might be feeling so overwhelmed or underappreciated or feeling as if the life that we are living at this point in time does not really feel aligned with who we know ourselves to be. And we were talking about this. Even if you're in a good place,
Mhm.
sometimes that good place doesn't align with what you truly want. I, right now in my life, have so many good and great and wonderful things. And I recognize that it's still not aligned with who I desire to be. So, what do you do with that when things are good and it still feels like it's not good enough? And we have been programmed to not ask for more. How dare you ask for more? You got a nice house, you got a nice family, and you have the audacity to ask for more. Well, when your spirit knows that something
Mhm.
is not aligned to who you desire to be, you can't fake that. You could
Mhm.
try, but your body is always listening. Your nervous system is always listening. And so when things start to happen to us physically and we can't figure out, well, why do I feel so tired? Why is my hair falling out? How come I can't sleep? Because there's something going on energetically that doesn't align with what you know to be true, your
Yeah.
true self. Even if it looks like, girl, you got a good life. And I don't think it's that we're not appreciative. I don't think it's that. And I don't think it's us being greedy, although some would say, oh, you just want your cake and eat it too. But what else are we supposed to do with cake but eat it? Yes, I do want my cake and I want to eat it. Um,
Yes.
but I know when things are not aligned. I know it. And even when I try to tell myself that, oh no, girl, you got it good, my body is like, no, we don't. You just don't feel settled in your spirit.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it almost feels as though your brain keeps coming back around to something doesn't feel right. And it's like, but I have this wonderful man that loves me and I've got these great kids and I've got a great job. Why am I not satisfied? Why am I not happy? Is there something wrong with me that I just can't be happy? Right? That goes back to
Mhm.
us talking to ourselves nicely.
Yes.
Could it
Mhm.
be, could it be that underneath it all, at the pit and the core of who you are, you recognize and realize that there's something else that you desire to experience. There's something else that you desire to do. And I would never, as a spiritual life coach, tell anyone, well, just throw your life away and jump off the ledge and go do that thing. There are people who may want to do that. And I,
Mhm.
I can't say that I haven't done that. I've done that maybe once or twice in my life where I'm like, I'm throwing all this away and I'm just going to take a leap of faith and see what happens. If nothing else, we have to be true to ourselves. And so if
Mhm.
we are prepared for a new experience and we really want a new experience, then that means telling yourself the truth about your current experience and whether or not it is aligned. And I'm going to keep using that word. I'm not going to use pleasurable. I'm not going to, because, that could change as the calendar changes.
Mhm.
Alignment, meaning that I wake up in the morning and I have a thought, and then I try to bury that thought because it doesn't fit into the life that I have now.
Right.
Or I'm dreaming about something. And then I try to bury that. I'm like, girl, you don't have time for that. You've got responsibilities, you got bills to pay. You we will try to bury it, but it's there. It just doesn't seem to ever go away. There are particular things that you might want to experience, you might want to explore. Doesn't mean you have to blow your life up, but you have to tell the
Hmm.
truth. We have to tell the truth. And so, one of the ways in which we can prepare for this new experience is number one, you got to look at where you're at right now and what's going on. And if there
Hmm.
is something in your life in this moment doesn't feel aligned with what you desire, tell yourself the truth. Please don't lie to yourself. There's enough people out there lying to us. Please don't ever lie to or betray yourself. And you may not need to share it with anyone at first.
Hmm.
You might need to just sit with it. Like, I can't even believe that this is something that I've been thinking about. Maybe you always had a desire to write a book, but you're thinking, I don't have time to write a book. I've got 20 million things that I have to do. Who am I to think that I could write a book? Who aren't you? Who aren't you? But I would bet that most of us have desires, have particular things that we would like to do. Maybe you haven't fleshed it all the way out. Maybe you haven't, really honed in on what that is. But if there is something, speak truth to it so that it can reveal itself. Maybe it's been hiding from you because it's afraid you're just going to keep shooting it down, shooting it down, shooting it down. The more truth you give to it, maybe it'll come out of hiding and say, hey, you've always wanted to be a singer. You may not have known that.
Hmm.
And I would also say surround yourself, and I don't necessarily mean, you know, joining groups, but surround yourself with people who appear to be living in their authentic self.
That's so important. Yes.
Oh, it is so inspiring. It is
Hmm.
so inspiring to see people say, why not me? I'm going to try this. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care what it sounds like. I don't even care if it's perfect or not. I am going to try. Knowing what the world can do when we try, right? We could put ourselves out there, knowing that the world could tear it apart. I'm going to do it anyway,
Hmm. Hmm.
unapologetically. Reading,
Unapologetically.
reading stories about individuals who are doing that, watching individuals do that, supporting other people who are doing that. I know every single one of us has someone in our friend group that is doing something that you're probably like, girl, what are you doing?
Hmm.
Support her. I've
Hmm.
said before, if one of my girlfriends says, I want to be a clown in the circus, let's go get your rubber nose so you can go be that clown. And recognize when you may be in the midst of people who don't support you. When you
Ooh.
do say, I want to do something, and they're the first to say, what make you can't do that? We cannot in 2025, we cannot afford to have that energy around us. I don't care who it is. It could be your mother, it could be your sister, it could be whomever. But if you are expressing a desire to do something, and there is someone who's like, why would you want to do that? They gotta go. They gotta go.
Hmm.
One
Hmm.
of the things that I surmised about the past election here in the United States was, if you can't see it for yourself, you can't see it in other people. And so I don't necessarily think, and I could be wrong. I don't necessarily think there were people who just didn't want a black woman president. There were
Mhm.
people who could not see that level of greatness in themselves. So how could it be present in someone else? Of course I'm going to question her credentials. Of course I'm going to question everything about her because I don't even see that in myself. Because though that you have
Mhm.
greatness within you, you recognize it, you see it in others.
Yeah.
But when you don't believe it for yourself, it's a lot harder for you to believe it in someone else, to see it in someone else. We don't have time for that. I am so apologetic for anyone who doesn't believe in themselves. There are days I don't believe in myself. I'm certainly not sitting here saying I believe in myself all the time, every time. No, I fight myself on the
Mhm.
daily. But one thing that I always return to is that the God of my understanding sees it in me. Who am I not to see it in myself?
Mhm.
Because why else
Mhm.
would it be? Why else would I have this platform? Why else would I be led where I have been led if it weren't for the God of my understanding saying that's exactly where I wanted you to be? But when you are surrounded by energy that's not supportive, more likely than not, it's because that individual, that person, that group may not be able to see that for themselves. That's not your fault, and that's not your
Mhm.
problem. But it's certainly something you don't need to be around. And I know that there are individuals listening that know exactly what I'm talking about. Those people that every time you try something, every time you do something, here they come with the commentary, the critiques, the judgment, the I heard somebody lost all their money doing that. I heard, it's never, you know, what time, how early in the morning do we need to get up to make
Mhm.
this thing happen in your life? Like those are the
Right.
kind of people we want and we need. And
That's
we should be
true.
surrounding ourselves. If I say I want to be an astronaut, I want my girlfriend at the door. Like, okay, we going to Florida. We going to Cape Canaveral. We're going where the astronauts go. Let's go. Those are the kinds of
Mhm.
people that you want to not only support you, because there will be times when you can't support yourself. Someone
Mhm.
needs to be to remind you of who you are, to say, you said that you were going to be doing X, Y, and Z. Why are you not doing it? And so that is the other thing that I would offer. Find an accountability partner, someone who is going to dig into you if you are not showing up in the way that you say you want to. I think everyone should have at least one. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone you talk to every day, but at least someone that you check in with. And if you haven't quite formulated what the goals for 2025 for yourself are, then say that. I don't know what I'm doing, but I know I want to do something. And I
Mhm.
need somebody who's going to check me when I'm not checking myself. I need an accountability partner because I can worm myself out of things all the time. So to have someone that will say, hey, that's not what you said you were going to do. Excuse me, ma'am. I thought we were doing something different.
Mhm. Mhm.
So find an accountability partner or find an accountability community, a community of individuals who not only see greatness in you, but see it in themselves, but also understand that this road is not easy, that there will be some times when I'm not believing in myself and I'm ready to throw everything away and forget about the dream and let me just go back to this, existence where I'm not really growing, I'm not being challenged, I'm just, moving like a robot. Let me just go back to what is familiar and comfortable. And that might be okay. But if you know it's not okay for you, then you really have to put some things in place to set yourself up for success. Accountability partners, accountability community, letting go of those people who are not supporting you. And it doesn't mean that you surround yourself with yes people that are just going to say yes no matter what you do. But it's really individuals who probably are working on some things themselves.
Mhm.
That is one of my lessons for 2024 is that when you are trying to build something and you may have someone in your life who's not trying to build anything, they can almost become like a brick around your neck, for lack of a
Mhm.
better understanding. It's like
Yeah.
everything can become an issue. I need to take time to work on this project. And they're like, what are you working on that for?
Just
Because
kind of
this is
take
my
the air
dream.
out of your balloon. Yeah.
Right. This
Mhm.
is my dream. This is my vision. And so this is the
Mhm.
thing that I love to do. So it's going to require my time and attention.
Yeah.
But if there's someone in your life that's not building anything or they're not really, creating things, they may not even, be harmful, but they certainly are not being helpful, if that makes sense. So they may not
Mhm.
even be, saying, you can't do that, don't do that. But they certainly aren't helping either.
Mhm.
They
That's so
may say, well,
true.
girl, let's go to brunch. And brunch sounds like a good and fun thing. I like brunch. But is brunch getting you closer? Particularly if it's every Sunday? Is it getting you closer? And where are those people when it's time to work? Or are they only just there when it's time, as my love says, a distraction?
Mhm.
The other thing that I would like to say about preparing ourselves, learn when
Mhm.
you need to redefine particular things for yourself. And we've talked about this before,
Mhm.
when we say discipline, we may automatically think that that's a harsh thing. Discipline is a very loving experience.
Mhm.
Punishment is different than discipline. Punishment feels punitive, like you did something wrong, so you need to be punished. Discipline is, I love this thing so much that I'm going to formulate and create my life in such a way that it pushes me closer to the thing that I love. So the discipline means cutting out the distractions. The discipline means I've got to spend X amount of time doing this thing. Discipline is very, very loving. You ever met
Mhm.
some individuals who've never been disciplined in their life? They all over the place, chaotic. Just whew.
As we see, yes.
discipline is a
Mhm.
very discipline is a very loving thing. Let's not confuse punishment with discipline.
Mhm.
When I was younger, I didn't understand that. As an adult, I completely understand when my mother would say, I'm creating something in you. I'm not taking anything away from you. I'm not, causing you. I'm creating something in you. I'm creating a habit. Ooh, Yvette.
Mm.
Yvette said you've never
Mhm.
done anything for me. Can't be friends. I love that. I love it.
Yes.
Listen, Kiki, yes, telling your goals to the wrong people. And it's sometimes
Mhm.
so slick and so sly, you don't even know it's happening. It's like you could tell people, all right, I'm going to, the library for 3 hours. What you going to do? Carl, come on out with us. We're about to go
Mhm.
do X, Y, and Z. Or you have told everybody in your friend group, I am saving my money to invest. And they're like, well, we're going on a trip. Don't you want to go? Please don't do that to your people.
Mhm.
If your best good girlfriend has said, I am doing a new thing, please don't try to tear her from that new thing. Ask her, how can I support you in that? Do you need me to
Mhm.
leave you alone? Do you not need me? Do you need me to leave you out of any conversation that involves drinking, partying? Like, We have to show up for one another. We have to show, because there are going to be times when we can't show up for ourselves. Lord, let us have a safe place to land. Please let us
Hmm.
have safe spaces to land. And if you recognize that your friend group might not be a safe space, doesn't mean that they're horrible people, doesn't mean that you can't love them. It may mean for this particular thing to happen in my life, I may have to put a pause on my interactions with my girlfriends. No harm, but and if they're your good girlfriends, if they're your good family, hopefully they will understand. Girl, I'm trying to build something. I'm trying to create something. And it
All right.
requires all of my time and attention. I love y'all, but I just can't do those things right now. And so if I
Hmm.
set aside some time now, once that thing begins to live and breathe in my life, then that will afford me the opportunity to do all of those other things. But right now, we gotta be focused. We have to be disciplined. It's a lot, Marissa. It's a
It's a
lot.
lot.
And I would hope that we're not afraid of 2025.
Mm.
I would hope that we don't enter into that space with fear in our body. And I know that that is asking a lot, considering what we know to be true, particularly here in the United States, what we know to be true about this administration that is coming in. But do not discount that destructive people can also enter into their own self destruction. Sometimes all you got to do is sit back and watch it happen.
Ooh. Wow. That is
And
so
we're
true.
already seeing that. We're already
Uh-huh.
seeing people it's imploding as we
Hmm.
speak. It is imploding as we speak. Sometimes all we have to do is sit back and watch, but certainly don't give that energy of fear into it. Let us
And I
not
wanted
forget
to.
that there is a opportunity for us here.
Hmm.
Yes, talking in
And I wanted to.
constant fear is going to wreck your body. You can't afford that.
Hmm. And so, how do we begin to
Ooh.
shift to a place of clarity, as we've talked about before, right? Being clear about where we stand, about how people really feel, things that they may have been holding
Mhm,
inside all this time, which we knew we
mhm,
felt, especially I talk about like workplaces a lot
mhm.
on my channel, which is how we came into contact. I work with Yolanda as my
Yeah.
spiritual life coach, transitioning out of a toxic job. But just these environments that we've been in all of this time and they've lied to us, right? So how can we like get to that point of clarity where we're like, okay, we see how things are, and how can that be a source of empowering ourselves, right, as we move forward versus staying in feeling stuck in feelings of fear.
I am a firm believer that once you see the truth of something, you can't act like you don't know. You just can't. Or if you do, you become a participant. If I sit and watch someone take money out of my purse and I don't do anything about it, it's almost as if I've given them my money. You know what I mean? It's so we have to start trusting our bodies. When something
Hmm.
doesn't feel right, it isn't right. And I know that for many of us, we've had experiences within our childhood growing up when we were developing, when we knew something was not right, and someone else came along to tell us no, not to trust ourselves. So we, many of us can be at a point where we don't know what to trust, right? Because we've been told one thing, we see something else. If you had experience, literally have looked in the eyes of people who said that they loved you, only to find out later that was not the case. If you've lived long enough, we've
Hmm.
all had those experiences where what we thought was wound up being something else. Number one, do not beat yourself up. If you believed something to be true when in fact later you found out it wasn't.
Mhm.
There are phenomenal actors among us. And sometimes we are the actress in our own lives, where we see it, we know it, and we'll try to convince ourselves it's something else. So we have to trust ourselves. But this is the thing about uncertainty and clarity and fear. When you recognize that you are unclear about something, there is a part of you that has to acknowledge that that there is some kind of relationship going on, right? Like for
Mhm.
me, one of my biggest fears is disappointment. And so oftentimes I will try to convince myself not to do particular things because you're just going to wind up disappointed. So why even try? Why even bother? Right?
Mhm.
I know that about me. I know that for me, a fear of disappointment can be so strong that it prevents me from doing anything.
Yeah.
I'm at the point in my life where I'm so familiar with disappointment, I could call it out even if it was in a disguise. Right? Like, and I think for many of us, we know what our fears are. We know. We
Mhm.
know. We may try to act as if we don't. We may try to deflect. We have a better chance of gaining clarity if we're willing to admit what the fear is and call it out. And call it out. And so oftentimes when I'm in situations where I'm trying to decide, should I do this or shouldn't I do this, I will call myself out and say, that's just disappointment rearing its ugly head because you think everything's going to fall apart. You don't think it's going
Mhm.
to be successful. You don't think you're going to get the result that you want. How do you know that to be true? And the more that I
Mhm.
call it out, the less power it the less power it seems to take over. One of my other fears, and I can line them all up and say, this is disappointment, this is abandonment, this is lack. One of my other fears is that there's never going to be enough,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So I have this fear that no matter what I do, it's never going to be enough, which pushes me
Mhm.
into doing too much and then overwhelm
Mm.
and
Interesting.
so I call it out.
Mhm.
So I call it out. It's like you're doing too much. Pull it in, rein it in. So we have to get to the level of comfort where we are willing to expose, shine a light on, and call out what the fear is
Mhm.
so that we can take some of that power from it and pour it into the truth. And the thing about uncertainty, there might be some truth in the uncertainty. Guess what? We don't know what's going to happen. We are absolutely correct. We have no idea what's going to happen. But why convince ourselves that it's all going to be horrible? Why convince ourselves that it's not going to work? Why do we always go to the default that it's not
Mhm.
going to work instead of the possibility that everything's going
Right.
to be exactly the way that it's supposed to be? And like our good sis said earlier, you can't be my friend if you haven't done anything
Mhm.
scary. Life itself
Mhm.
is scary. Waking up in this
Wow.
United States of America every day is scary. But here's the thing, we've been doing scary things our entire lives.
Mhm.
Our entire lives. And if we think for one second that we are not built for it, we would be wrong. We are built for it. Just as I said, we all came into existence knowing particular things. I'm going to be taken care of until somebody else showed us that that's not the
Mhm.
case. So, unlearning a lot of what the fear is means you got to face it. And you have to say to yourself, whether it's in a journal, whether it's in the mirror, or whether it's just in your head, in this moment right now, I'm facing disappointment. In this moment right now, I'm facing an uncertainty that feels like I'm not going to be taken care of or I'm going to lose it. Say what it is. Write it down. Speak it so that you can then start to say, well, now, wait a minute. How do I know that to be true? Out of all of the possibilities that could happen, why am I picking this one? For those of you who are familiar with Marvel movies and
Mhm.
where Doctor Strange could go in time and see how everything was going to play out. And he's like, oh, there's all of these possibilities, and there's only one way that this, we are not Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
We cannot predict the future and say, okay, it's only going to wind up happening or ending this way. Love that for us if we had that ability. But trust, even if we did have the ability to see what the future holds, we still wouldn't act right.
That's true.
We still would,
That's
but
true.
you know what I mean? We still wouldn't act right.
Mhm.
So we also have to examine that thing within us that always defaults to it being tragic, horrible, and horrific.
Mhm.
And what would happen if we start to train our brains? Like I said earlier, look at everything as a spiritual opportunity. The more you see things as an opportunity, the more they are possible.
Mhm.
So even if it looks like, God forbid, you walk into your job on Monday and there's a pink slip on your desk, you could look at that pink slip and say, this is a spiritual opportunity. I could rise to the occasion, and this may be the opportunity for me to do what I've always wanted to do on my own. This be an opportunity for me to walk into that office and ask them, why am I getting the pink slip? Like, it, it could be the avenue or the pathway for you to see exactly what you're made of. Oftentimes, the
Mhm.
challenges, the obstacles, the things that we think come to us to tear us down are actually the things that are there to build us up, for us to see how are we going to respond. And so for me, knowing that disappointment is my default,
Mhm.
I have to have conversations with myself and say, you don't know, Yolanda. You've
Mhm.
had so many amazing things happen in your life. If you allow disappointment to be the answer to everything, you would have nothing. So
Wow.
those are the pep
Mhm.
talks that I have to have with myself, but that's also the kind of conversations I have with my accountability partner, the people that I,
Mhm.
that I lean on when I
Right.
start saying stuff that don't even sound right. When I start saying, "Oh, it's not going to work. It's all going to fall apart." That's where someone who is invested in my well-being will say, "Well, how do you know that? What evidence do you have that it's going to happen that way?" Particularly when this is something new that you've never done before. What evidence do you have? Something that happened in the past that's in the past. We're doing something different. And we're doing it with experience because the one thing I know about disappointment, it will show you what you need to see. It will show you
Mhm.
what you need to see. So,
Mhm.
so maybe you make adjustments. So maybe you make adjustments this time around. And we also have so many evidence of individuals who have tried and tried and tried and tried multiple times to do particular things, only to keep trying and then become successful because they were not willing to give up, because they recognized that all of those times that it didn't work out, it wasn't a failure, it was experience, it was muscle building.
Mhm. Mhm.
That is very challenging to do by yourself.
Mhm.
It can be downright exhausting. I'm not saying that you can't do it by yourself, but it can be exhausting to be your only cheerleader, to be the only one who's invested in your well-being, to be the only one who understands what it feels like when things don't go well. And one of the things that I love about past accountability partners that I've had, when I needed to be sad, they let me be sad. Like if something didn't work out, it's like, all right, that sucks. Let's feel that. Let's feel that. And one of the great things that I have in my therapist is, and I told her from the very first meeting, I have a very hard head, so you're going to have to dig your heels in with me. Don't let me get away with anything.
Mm-hmm.
And she has stood firm on that. It will challenge me and say, how much more are you going to put up with this? This is not what you said you
Mm.
wanted. You
Mm-hmm.
know what you know what you need to do. So what are you going to do it? What's the timeline? Like, we need those kind of people who literally will fortify us when we feel like it's all falling apart.
Right.
And so uncertainty is truth. We don't know. But the not knowing doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to work. The not knowing just means we don't know. But perhaps the journey itself is worth it, because the alternative is what? I think one of our friends said the alternative is to do what? Live in fear
Mm-hmm.
and regret. There there is a book, I cannot remember who it's by. I can only remember someone talking about the title. I think it was DJ Jazzy Jeff talking about a book, better not die with that thing left in you. Do the
Mm-hmm.
thing, whatever the thing is, no matter how big it is. Do not let
Mm-hmm.
the thing die within you. You cannot die with that thing still living within you. Burn it out, live it out. If it doesn't work, try something else. And like I said earlier, redefine what it didn't work. There have been things that I've tried. They may not have been executed on the level that I wanted to, but I
Mm-hmm.
learned something.
Right.
Like, there have been times I was teaching a class, and in my mind, I was like, okay, this will be successful if there are 20 people in the class. I had three. Now, does that mean it wasn't successful? No, I
Mm-hmm.
had three. I could have had none.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave those three what I would have given those 20. And it still showed who I am. And so we have to, we talked about accountability partners. We talked about pulling all of those weeds out of our lives that are not supporting us, redefining what success means, calling out fear.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Compassion. Yes. Please let us be gentle with ourselves.
Yeah.
Compassion allows me to decipher the message. Disappointment is, yeah, whew. And disappointment, at least for me, is really a measurement that no one else knows about, that I have in my head,
Mm.
in terms of what it's supposed to be, what it's supposed to look like, and how it's supposed to play out. But just as I said in that one scenario where there was some disappointment, it's like, well, I wanted at least 20. Well, you had three, and you still showed up for the three, like you would have showed up for the 20, like you would have showed up for the 200, like you would have showed up for the 2,000. And that's important because at some point, that 2,000 may be there. Don't you want to be prepared?
Mm-hmm.
There have been individuals who have thrown everything away. Well, I didn't sell out, or I didn't sell the amount that I wanted to sell. But even if you just sold one, even if you just sold one, you still gained some experience. And that one can turn into a million. We have no idea. But if
Mm-hmm.
we just, like, cut that energetic opportunity off, we have no idea what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. I think that's powerful to be able to reframe that as well. and know that you have the agency, right? To kind of resist like
Mhm.
maybe societal messaging and the obsession with quantitative data, right? That you have to have this certain number of XYZ to be I think I might, hopefully I'm back. But yeah, taking that power back for yourself, right? To set
Yes.
your own standards of what is successful.
Which when you
I
when
think
you
that's huge. Hmm.
right. Yeah. Well, when you think about reframing, it really is unlearning, right? It's like, okay, whose definition was I using to begin with? Was it my
That
own,
part, yes.
or was it someone else's preconceived notion of what this is supposed to be? Right. So
Hmm.
reframing is unlearning. It really is unlearning someone else's definition. What does it mean for you? What does, success mean for you? What does love mean for you? Oh my goodness. When
Hmm.
I was able to redefine and reframe love for myself, whew,
Hmm.
I was like, what the heck was I doing the first 45 years of my life, thinking that
Hmm.
love was a particular thing, only to discover it wasn't any of those things that I thought it was. And now that I
Hmm.
have reframed it and defined it for myself, whew, and that also supports us in those places where we're uncertain. Because perhaps we're uncertain because we're using someone else's definition of what things are supposed to be.
Ooh. Hmm.
And we're out there thinking we're
Hmm.
losing, and the whole time we're not, because we're comparing ourselves to other things. We're in competition with other things. And so we're
Hmm.
telling ourselves we're uncertain or I'm not clear. Well, what is your definition of clarity? Whose clarity are you using? Whose definition of right, of wrong, of sacred, of love? Like whose definition
Hmm.
are you using? Are you comparing yourself to someone who doesn't even know you exist, who has not lived the life that you
Hmm.
have lived, who doesn't have the life experiences that you have had? Now, I don't know about anybody else, but my good girlfriend, and I'm talking about my good girlfriend, Beyonce, um, she inspired me on Christmas, and I was just watching it again. Like, I'm like, I don't even understand. I don't even understand. But what my takeaway from my good girlfriend is somebody else trying to tell you who you are and what you are can never stand.
Hmm.
Like, how dare you tell this woman born in Houston, Texas, that she is not country? Not only did she say, watch what I do, and took it to a whole nother level. Huh. So we really have to be clear about whose definitions we are using for a particular thing when people tell you you're not this or you're not that, when the whole time you are every single thing that they say that you're not. And I
Hmm.
was just I'm so inspired by her boldness. It could have been, well, they didn't accept me at, in their genre. She was like, guess what? I'm about to flip the whole thing. How about that? How
Hmm.
about that? And I'm bringing other people with me. And so we need more of that. We
Hmm.
really need more of, please stop trying to tell us what success is. Please stop trying to tell us where we're supposed to be or what we're supposed to have or what it's supposed to look like. I get to define that for myself. I have to be
Hmm.
comfortable with it because I have to live with it.
Hmm. Yeah.
I have to live with it. And I have to live with the choices and the decisions that I'm making in order to get there. That's the other thing for me. And also one of the reasons why I'm coming off of YouTube is like I have to be comfortable with the choices that I'm making. And if some of the choices lead me down a path where I'm saying yes to things that I know that I would normally not say yes to, I got to live with that.
Mhm.
I have to live with that. Um, when sometimes when I am on social media and I'm watching things, and then maybe I'll see an ad or something else will come up in the algorithm, it leads me to think, I wonder if this person knows that their content is being aligned with something that they have no control over. You know what I mean? Like you do a great job of putting
Interesting.
something together, crafting a message, and
Yeah.
then they attach an ad or attach something to it. It's like that's not anything that I would
Wow,
ever
that's
associate with.
true.
But
Mhm.
might have to be that might have to be the choice you make in order to
Mhm.
participate. We have to
Mhm.
define what we're willing to do and what we're not willing to do in order to
Mhm.
feel complete. Which is another thing that I would offer for our spirit as we move into
Mhm.
2025. Be very clear about not just your boundaries, what is your value system? What are you willing to say
Mm.
no to? Even if it sounds like a good thing, I'm sure many of us have had opportunities where someone has said, you know what, I can get you XYZ, and all you got to do is say of this product, and you're like, I would never use that thing in my entire life. But if it's going to get me what I want, maybe I'll say it. I've done it. I've had people say, just take a picture with this thing, say you use it, and it'll generate, some exposure. Okay,
Mhm.
we all have to make choices and decisions based upon our value system, based upon who we say we want to be. And again, we have to define what that is. If you don't define it, then you might be more willing to just do anything and say yes to things that you normally wouldn't. So
Mhm.
if you're not clear about your value system, if you're not clear about, your definitions for things, you might be saying yes and then later on regret it.
Mhm.
So let us not go into 2025 in the energy of fear. But if you are uncertain, then say that. I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't know what's going to happen for Yolanda in 2025, but this is what I do know. I'm not going to be afraid. And we were talking
Mhm.
earlier, because the stakes are so high, it's going to require us to be a higher version of ourselves.
Mhm.
For me, this feels like a call up.
It does. Uh-huh.
We are facing some huge uncertainty. It's a call up
Mhm.
so that we all can see exactly what we are made of. And I'm telling you, you're going to be surprised. I think we are all going to be surprised to say, wow, I had no idea how dynamic I really am. When my back is against the wall, I had no idea this was what was going to come forth. That really
Mhm.
is how I feel, because that's the way that power works. That's the way that power works.
Mhm. I do see a question if someone is struggling with comparing themselves to others, which is often like told to us. And a lot
Hmm.
of these spaces that we're in, workplaces, academic institutions, like to compare what we're doing against someone
Hmm.
else. And that's often the source of like self doubt, right? Self criticism. How do we begin to get out of that pattern of comparison to others?
I think the first step for anything is, again, you have to acknowledge that it's there and tell
Mhm.
yourself the truth. I've been comparing
Mhm.
myself to Sally, who's two cubicles down. Sally and I are
Mhm.
not the same. We might have the same job title. We may even be on the same in terms of salary, but we're two different people. We approach things differently. But I recognize and acknowledge that I've been comparing my journey and my progress to her.
Mhm.
And then also has been happening for you because again, going back to childhood, it starts very early. I recognize it,
Mhm.
in the center where we're telling kids, look at Sally. Look how good Sally is being. Sally's going to get a gold star because she's listening and she's being
Oh, the
good.
gold stars. Yes.
Right. Sally's going to get a gold star because she's sitting quietly. Well, what if I'm the kind of what if I'm kind that doesn't know what messaging is that sending to me that I'm not
Mhm.
enough because I'm not like Sally? So it starts
Yeah.
very, very early. It happens if you have siblings. Siblings get compared to one another all the time. It happens in the family because there's always a superstar somewhere in the midst that everyone gets compared to or everyone competes with, and it continues into adulthood where we now have that same messaging that, oh, I'm 25 and I'm not where so and so is, or look at what they've been
Mhm.
able to amass in
Yeah.
6 months and I've been at this for 10 years. Confess and tell the truth of how you feel about that. There is an individual, now I don't know her personally, it's I'm literally on the outside looking in. She is, now how can I say this without saying who it is? There are two actresses. I'll just say this: two actresses. One has
Mhm.
been an actress since she was a child. One just happened. I don't want to say she just fell into it, but she has amassed a great career in a short amount of time, and they
Mhm.
seem to bump heads. I can't imagine what it would feel like if I have been doing this thing since I was a child and I have the same level of success that this person has in a short amount of time. I would absolutely be comparing myself in my journey.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Because we're human. We do that.
Mhm.
How many of us live in communities where all of the houses may look the same and so and so's getting, new shutters on the house and you're like, "Oh, I got to go get new shutters on the house." Like it's just part of human nature. But if we don't
Mhm.
call it out and acknowledge that it's happening, then we're not going to be able to tame it or tamp it down. It's not fair to either party to do that because even
Mhm.
though we may be doing the same thing, we're doing it differently. We have different life experiences. Things evolve the way that they evolve. And why would I beat myself up because your evolution looks different than mine? When I don't know everything that you had to go through to get to where you're at, and you don't know everything that I've had to go through to get to, it's not fair to either one of us to
Mhm.
either to even enter into that kind of expression. It's just not fair. And so when you notice yourself doing that, like, oh my gosh, I'm 40 and I've never been married and I don't have, whatever it is for you, if those are goals and dreams that you have for yourself and you see other people achieving those goals, tell the truth how you feel about it. If you're envious, if you feel, some kind of way, then tell the truth. And then that's what you work on. Instead of beating yourself up, oh, I got to do what so and so is doing. Let me work
Mhm.
on why I feel that way to begin with. Why do I feel they are the barometer? Why do I
Mhm.
feel like they have a better life than I had? Because none of us really knows, which is another reason why, social media can be harmful because we are only seeing what people
Snippet.
want
Mhm.
us to see. I don't know where all these people who are getting dressed with the gift and putting on all these clothes, where y'all going? Where y'all going? And then that makes you feel like, well, I don't have enough clothes in my closet. I'm not going.
Uh-huh.
I don't have these, the walk-in closet with the 400 pairs of shoes. And what does that say about me? It doesn't say anything about you. And
Mhm.
don't you dare get into that trap of thinking that you have to live the life that someone else is living because you don't know what they've had to do to get that life. You don't know what they're doing to sustain that life. You don't know
Yeah,
the price that they have paid for any, we don't know.
that's true.
But be real
Mhm.
and honest with yourself when those feelings come up, where you feel not enough, because that's one of my fears too, the not enoughness. I must not be doing something right. How about maybe God has a different plan for you and it doesn't look like that, even if you want it to look like that? And how
Mm.
about if we focus
Mhm.
on the sacred contract that we have in our own lives? We may get further than we ever imagined possible. As they say, keep your eyes on your own paper. If we focused on what feels right for us, if we focus on the healing journey that we're on instead of what everyone else is doing, perhaps we may find that definition of success that we're looking for. So, in all things, my first thing is to identify it, call it out, don't act like it's not happening. And it's not
Mhm.
to make you feel worse. It's not to make you feel bad. It's for you to say, I see the truth of what's going on here. And I would like to make another choice. You can't make another choice if you don't understand the choices that you're currently making. So if you don't know that you're comparing and the comparison brings about a particular feeling like envy, and maybe if you take some deep dives, you find out that that has been with you for quite some time because maybe you had an experience growing up where, everybody had stuff that you didn't, and that
Mhm.
makes you feel incomplete or that makes you feel unworthy. Tell the truth.
Mhm.
Tell the truth.
Mhm.
It doesn't
And
make
I'll
you a
say
bad
that,
person. It makes you
yeah.
human.
And sometimes we feel like telling ourselves the truth will cause everything to disintegrate, right? I know, like, even being the job
Mhm.
that I was in, I was like, if I just stop for a second and tell myself, like, how traumatizing this environment is, everything will come crumbling down. But maybe it needs to, right? And that's the other thing I've had to learn.
Right.
Yeah, these points, like, we think the truth is just
Do
gonna,
you
like,
feel like,
mm-hmm,
and did you find that the falling apart was exactly what needed to happen?
it is. It took me a while, and I know you shared that with me too. At the moment, I'm like trying to like hold everything together, which was requiring all of my strength because it needed to fall apart. And it's only now in retrospect that I'm like, okay, now I understand. Like, I was meant to be here. If that hadn't went that way, I would still be like in a mode of self betrayal,
Mhm.
right? Yes.
Ah,
Mm-hmm.
and the challenge with that is sometimes when you admit those things to yourself, you could also, there's the danger of disappointment. Like, I let myself down.
Mm-hmm.
If sometimes we're in relationships, we're in jobs, we're in particular things long past the expiration date because the truth is, I know I shouldn't have been there. And if I tell myself that truth, then
Mm-hmm.
essentially what I'm saying is I let myself down. And that can
Absolutely.
feel worse than anything.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side of that, of saying I let myself down, on the other side of that is, and I'm not going to do it again. I'm not going to do it again. And
Mm-hmm.
a level of forgiveness is I forgive myself when I thought I knew what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I forgive myself for staying in environments way past the expiration date. But even identifying and acknowledging that can get you to a place, and I'm not going to do that again.
Mhm.
I mean, I think every single one of us can say, oh, there was a relationship, whether it was romantic, friend relationship, family, job, where we're like, I knew I should have left, and I didn't,
Mhm.
and I didn't. But hopefully that leads to, I won't do that to my again, like you said, the betrayal. I won't betray myself again.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because as
Absolutely.
I always say, when you know the truth, or when the truth is facing you have to make a choice. You're either going to make that choice willingly or unwillingly. And typically, the unwilling choice leads to illness, whether it's mental illness, physical illness, emotional
Mhm.
illness.
Mhm.
When the truth is there and we try to ignore it, our bodies will not. Your nervous system will not.
Mhm.
Your nervous system will tap, 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 tap until it can't tap anymore to say, hey, this is not working. We can't be here.
Mhm.
I'm there right now. My
Mhm.
whole digestive system is just like, we done told you how many times, lady, you cannot be there.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Absolutely.
Radical acceptance. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. And I think just throughout like my whole life, my
Yeah,
academic career,
being willing.
mhm,
Mm,
different jobs and stuff like that, the physical manifestation of, again, me not telling myself the truth because I was straight in survival mode for so long. Like, I have to get this, I have to be on this path.
mhm,
Glamazini, Roshni Cope describes it as the conveyor belt. Right? We're often placed on this conveyor belt. Now you have to achieve this by this and this, which doesn't leave us time to like sit
mhm,
and ask ourselves, is this what we want? Right? Tapping into self determination, as Dr. Crystal shared too. Self
mhm.
determination, making choices for your life.
Yes.
And like you shared, defining your values for yourself versus someone else's values that they told you that you had to have. Does that actually align with what you want your life to look like? I think that's important.
Mhm. It is, and it's actually something that I recommend everyone do again without pressure. And the beginning of the year is a good time to do that. To take a look at what is my value system. What are the values for this year? I try to do at least three spiritual principles that I will follow every year. There is a process that I go through. Um, and one of the reasons that I do that is it helps me, supports me when I need to make a choice. And so one of my spiritual principles for 2024 was harmony. And so if I'm faced with a choice, I can just ask myself, is this going to bring harmony into my life? And if the answer is no, I already know what my answer is going to be. No, can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I sway from what I say are my guiding principles, what I say are my guiding values, that's when I'm out of balance. And I absolutely know why my body is responding the way it's responding because haven't been in harmony. I've been saying yes when I said should have said no. I've been saying no when I should have said yes. And so I would offer for everyone that may be another exercise that you engage in
Mm-hmm.
the new year. Some guiding principles, some spiritual principles. And you may say, well, where will we get some spiritual principles from? There are so many resources and tools where you can find spiritual principles. I happen to have soul cards. If I can find the box.
Hmm.
Are these my soul cards? Yep. So these are actually coaching cards
Oh.
from Denise
Mm-hmm.
Lynn, and they're soul cards. And there are different spiritual principles on each of the cards. And so I can sit and just either pull a card. I see if it resonates with me. Most of these types of cards, now, some people may say tarot cards. These are not tarot cards. These are literally
Mhm.
soul cards. And so if I want to take a deeper dive and see what the definition of that is, um, that's something that I can do. There are so many resources that individuals can tap into in terms of guiding principles, value system. Some people do mission statements for themselves every year. Some people
Mhm.
do vision statements for themselves. Um, One of the things that I work with individuals when I'm coaching is every single time we have a coaching session, it's like, okay, what's the intention for this session? So
Mhm.
that we're very clear about what it is that we are doing and we're doing it with intention. You might want to have an intention statement for 2025 so that
Mhm.
if
Mhm.
things come up for you, you can look at that intention statement and say, this does not align with who I want to be. It's going to be a no for me. Or this is exactly the type of thing that I say that I want to align with. So it's a yes for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
So those are some of the things that the tangible things that we can do to support ourselves in being very clear, very focused, very disciplined in the year. And it also sends a signal to your brain that you are doing something different, that we are creating different ways of being, which will also support you if you're feeling uncertain about 2025. But as I said, one of the first things that I say with anything, call it what it is. If you are unclear, then say, I am very unclear. And then
Mhm.
start to ask yourself, what are you unclear about? I don't know if I should stay in this job. I don't know if I should stay in this relationship. For me, if you
Mhm.
are asking that question, you already probably know the answer. You just need
Mhm.
some
Mhm.
convincing.
Mhm.
Because otherwise, why would you question it? When things are certain, you typically don't question them. But when you start to have questions, there's already some uncertainty there. There's already some doubt. There's already, you know, an opportunity, if you will, for you
Mhm.
to ask yourself some very telling questions. It's like, well, where did that even come from?
Interesting.
Now,
Yes. Mhm.
be mindful. I am mindful and I fully confess and recognize that I am an impulsive person.
Mhm.
It doesn't take much for me for me to say I'm done. I don't want to be bothered.
Mhm.
Then it usually takes me, a couple of hours or maybe the next day. I'm like, okay, you were being impulsive. That's not how you really feel. But if that feeling does not leave me, I trust it. If I say I'm done with something and I don't go back to it, I don't second guess myself.
Mhm.
Even with me being impulsive, even with me being impulsive. So again, you have to tell the truth. You have to know who you are. If you know you are an impulsive person, somebody say something crazy to me, I'm done. I'm
Mhm.
done. It may take me some time. Let me sit with it for a little bit, and it's like, okay, that was a knee jerk reaction. But if I don't come off of that, then I know I'm trusting it. That was
Mhm.
the right
Mhm.
response.
And that's the
And so my
perfect.
desire with the Evolve community is to also support, yeah, support us
Mhm.
into knowing ourselves on that level.
Mhm. Mhm. I do want to ask
Mm,
about
I
trusting
love that.
ourselves, right? And going right along with like our intuition. If we may be disconnected
Hmm.
from our intuitions, being in this society, it's not really emphasized, taught to us to adhere to the downloads that we receive, right? That a lot of us receive. So how do we begin to tap into that power of our intuition, even if we're surrounded by all this chaos externally, really tapping into the power that already exists within us to guide us forward as a
Mhm.
compass.
Practice, practice, practice. There are ways to practice to strengthen your intuition and your sense of knowing. I love when people say things like, "Oh, I'm an empath." We all are. Every
Mm-hmm.
single one of us have been born with that ability to know what it is that we know. Other things can come along and, you know, decrease the intensity of your intuition when you're not trusting yourself, when you're not trusting your gut. And so I say practice. For me, it's your spiritual practice is something that you are doing on a day-to-day basis. It is part of who you are. We are all familiar with rituals. How many of
Mm-hmm.
us still, I hope, say a prayer before we eat? How many of us have a particular way that we begin our day? Your ritual might include, I got to have a cup of coffee before I do anything. Like we are all familiar with rituals and habits.
Mm-hmm.
Center your rituals and your habits around your spiritual practice and your intuition to strengthen it. And that may look like, again, resting. Our brains are so filled and processing so much information. It can be very, very challenging to trust your gut when your head is all filled with stuff. So, resting your
Yes.
brain, turning things off, going to bed at a
Mm-hmm.
reasonable hour, hydrating yourself, taking care of your physical being. Because if you are dealing with a lot of different physical issues, you tapping into your intuition is not going to be well in your spirit. And so,
Mm-hmm.
prayer. And it may be prayer in a way that is different from the traditional prayer that you are used to. It may be a conversation. For me, ritual is communication. It's nonverbal communication. It's how I speak to spirit. It's how I speak to the spirit within me. It's how do I speak to the spirit around me. I do that through praying.
Mm-hmm.
I do that through meditating. I do that through grounding techniques. Get in some nature. Find a tree, find some grass, find something. But get up in nature.
Mm-hmm.
When you are feeling overwhelmed, many of us will run to other things before we run to nature.
Mm-hmm.
Us will run to things in a bottle or
Mm-hmm. Social
things.
media.
So, right.
Yes.
I'll sit outside and breathe some fresh air.
Mm-hmm.
Breathing is a great way. Um, and for those of us who are just highly intellectuals and need something meatier, it may mean you sit and you play a game with yourself. Um, the other day, I had a deck of cards. I took three cards out, I put them face down, and I tried to guess what the card was before I turned it over. I really
Mm-hmm.
just focus. I'm like, I'm just going to focus on the cards. I'm going to block everything else out, and I'm just going to focus. I'm going to put myself in the present. And that was practicing. That's me practicing and strengthening my spiritual self. Oh, yes. The singing and the dancing. Let me tell you, before we came on, I was blasting Caesar because there are times I forget how music reconnects me in ways that other things cannot.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
there are just particular songs that remind me of who I am and how wonderful it is to be alive. Movement. I got my good hula hoop over there. Sometimes moving your body is a great way to reconnect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Trusting yourself also means staying at yeses in your nose, recognizing when you're
Mm-hmm.
talking too much,
Yes.
which I do often. Sometimes we give excuses for things when all a yes or no is it. We don't need to explain why we're saying yes. We don't need to explain why we're saying no. But that's part of us that feels like, well, I got to make it easier for them. I have to explain why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's not necessary. Yes, connecting with your ancestors.
Mhm.
I have been talking to my mama like she's sitting in the chair with me
Mhm.
because I recognize when I need her spirit around me most. When I feel
Mhm.
like I need to be nurtured and there's no one in the physical realm to do that for me, then I'm gonna go to the spiritual realm and say, hey, I need y'all to surround me. Talk to your people. Talk to your people. Even if those people were not related to you by birth or biologically, they're still your people. I have
Mhm.
adopted people that I have never met in the physical realm, but they're mine because the spirit of who they were resonates with me.
Mhm.
Taking time for yourself, be by yourself. There are people that I have worked with who don't know how to just be with themselves. They've just always got to be doing something.
Yeah.
Sit in silence. Kiki said you hoping I would pull some of these cards? Maybe. Oh, I love that, Dr. Crystal. Doing something that
Yes.
you with your mother. I
Mhm.
I love it. Yesterday, I pulled out one of Isaiah's shirts. Isaiah is my son who passed away 11 years ago, and I still have his clothing around. And when I want to feel close to him,
Mhm.
I'll put on one of his shirts or his pajama bottoms, and it literally takes
Mhm.
me to a space of him being here, but also still being here, if that makes sense. Feeling
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
closeness.
Yeah.
Um, there are so many things that, so many tools that we have at our disposal if we would just allow ourselves to enter into those spaces. But please, please,
Yeah.
please, 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 believe it to be true. Sometimes something just come to do it, it doesn't resonate with you. If it doesn't feel authentic for you. You can burn all the
Mhm.
sage and Palo Santo all you want to. If it does not feel authentic for you, then I would say don't do that. You could try it and it might start to feel authentic. But if you're just doing it just to do it because somebody else told you to do it, leave that alone. Every
Mhm.
single one of us can create our own ritual, our own way of opening ourselves up, of expanding our consciousness. We really have the ability to do that. I would say get somewhere, get quiet, get centered, do or try as much as possible to empty your mind from all of the chaos, all of the stuff that's going on. Limit the stuff that you are taking in. You've got to recognize that watching the news, reading other people fighting on it's not even your fight and you all in it. The things that we
Mhm.
consume can also disrupt our ability to trust ourselves because we could be watching somebody else's mess and absorbing that to be our truth.
Yes.
How many times have we seen something happen to someone and then we immediately say, oh, well, that's why I'm not going to do that anymore? We have
Mhm.
changed the course of our life based upon someone else's experience. We see a couple going through something horrible. It's like, well, that's why I'm staying single because I don't want to be. But now you have just altered your life based upon somebody else's experience. So let
Mhm.
us be mindful when we are watching and absorbing someone else's life experience, and now we're changing who we are and what we're doing. Well, I don't go to
Yeah.
that. place anymore because such and such happened to so and so. It's like, okay, if you do it in that instance, you may do it in other instances. So let's just be mindful how we're absorbing other people's energy. And so
Mhm.
trusting yourself means just that. If your spirit says no, make it no. If your spirit says yes, make it yes. If your spirit says I don't know, say I don't know.
Mhm.
But the people pleasing has got to we gotta we gotta find another way to exist. We
Absolutely.
have to
I
find
do want to
to yes, go ahead.
I want to ask, yeah, something about like the fear that I sometimes see around connecting with our ancestors, right? And for various reasons, but there's often this blockage that
Mm-hmm.
has been created in a lot of our minds that we're not even able to access ancestral knowledge, traditions, right? From hundreds, thousands of years, even like one generation back, because of that fear. And that keeps us from healing, maybe healing that can occur
Mm-hmm.
because of that fear. I want to ask, like, how do you work through this if this is something that you're experiencing?
Well, Marissa, of course they're gonna say it's witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
Like how y'all can't be out there doing things. But here's the thing that has always struck me. It must be absolutely powerful for us to do so, or they would not have tried so hard to keep us from doing it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If it was
Mm-hmm.
something that was harmful or hurtful for us to do, they they probably would encourage us to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If you really wanted to
Mm-hmm.
conquer a people, if you really wanted to conquer people, you would have them engage in things that you knew were harmful,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, you know, calling it witchcraft, saying it's evil, saying it's demonic. Of course, we're going to
Mm-hmm.
say all of those things because we don't want you to. We want you to be in touch with your ancestors. Why would we want you to do that? That's too
Mm-hmm.
powerful.
Mm-hmm.
We can't have you powerful in this realm and in other realms. God forbid. God forbid. And so to that, I say we all have to do what is comfortable for us.
Mm-hmm.
I would never tell anyone to engage in something that goes against their principles or brings about a level of discomfort because then the connection is not going to be what you desire, particularly if you think you're doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
However, every culture has a way of connecting itself to their ancestors, whether it is the way in which we conduct funerals. You know,
Mm-hmm.
every culture has a different way of honoring the dead.
Mm-hmm.
Um, every culture has a way of speaking about the dead and honoring the dead. And so I think each and every single one of us has to do what is comfortable for us. It's not something that I was always comfortable doing because I was raised Baptist. So, what do you mean
Mm-hmm.
talking to ghosts and ancestors? But the interesting
You know, give us a second. I think
up to the
even.
possibility of
Mm-hmm.
multiple ways of connecting to speak. And
Mm-hmm.
so, as I have gotten deeper in my own spiritual journey, and I recognize I have always been connected, even as a child, always felt connected to
Yes.
elder spirit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was a kid that wanted to be around the elders.
Me too.
Don't know why,
Mm-hmm.
just always
Mm-hmm.
felt connected. And so I recognize that that's not just a desire, it was a need. I have a need to be connected to those who have transitioned into other realms. I have a need. And I
Mhm.
feed that need by having an ancestral altar, by having conversations. I call them my people. I call on my people, um, because I recognize and acknowledge that there is activity that they can provide that I can't.
Mhm.
I know why I loved those people as deeply as I loved them, because how else would I be able to connect with them on the other side if they did not have that effect on me while they were here? And that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that all of our ancestors mean good for us. There are some people who are ancestral in my family. I don't ever want to speak to those people again, even on the other side. I trust that
Mhm.
their journey was incomplete and that whatever they need to resolve, they have resolved. But I don't connect with everyone. But those people
Mhm.
who had a profound effect on my life when they were here, they still have a profound effect upon me. And I, in some ways, feel their presence in greater ways than I did when they were here in the physical, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. But
It
I
does.
wouldn't be able to do it if I did not honor them,
Mhm.
um, if I did not revere them for all that they endured in this life and beyond. It is just
Mhm.
amazing to me that
Mhm.
it's amazing to me how I have been able, or how any of us have been able to love people as deeply as we love them, and for them to transition, and we just don't fall apart. You couldn't tell me
Mhm.
that my parents passing away, my son passing away, would have ripped me to shreds and I would have just fallen apart. You don't love people that deeply and not feel like when they're not here that you will fall apart. I have not, I may have bent, but I have not broken. I have not fallen apart. And I absolutely believe it's because their energy sustains me. That's my belief. I would share that with others if they are interested. I absolutely believe that I have not fallen apart because there is spiritual activity going on the other side on my behalf that carries me through day by day. How dare I not acknowledge their presence?
Mhm.
Um, and so for us going into this level of uncertainty, Guess who you can call on? Your people.
Absolutely.
Listen,
Mhm.
tell them, get it ready for me. Set it up and get it ready for me. Because I don't
Mhm.
know what's going to happen, but it's really going to require some supernatural activity.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
please go
Mhm.
do what I know y'all can do on my
Yep.
behalf and on behalf of anyone who is believing in your energy and in your spirit. That I on my altar there is space for um, there's a place for me to sit with them. There's a place for me to
Mhm.
light candles for them. There is a place for if I'm cooking, make sure I feed my people. My dad
Mhm.
liked whiskey. I don't drink whiskey, but if I got some whiskey, I'm gonna give him some whiskey. My mother
Mhm.
loved coffee. I'm gonna give her some coffee. My son loved candy. I'm gonna give him some candy.
Yeah.
It's not just a ritual that I enter into lightly. It's I love y'all. You're still with me. It's probably
Mhm.
more for me than it is for them, but that's the way that I acknowledge their presence.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
And
so,
like,
yeah,
yeah, I was gonna.
it has to be powerful
Mhm.
because why else would people try to prevent us from
That's
connecting on that level?
that's the question. Who does it benefit? Right? Who does it benefit
Who
when
does
we're
it
told
benefit?
we can't access people like you said that we love so deeply, and that love doesn't go anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
right? When someone transitions like the physical realm.
Absolutely not. Right.
And thinking about like the uncertainty that we're headed into, which is not new, right? But all the information that we can access through our ancestors, thinking about through generations the uncertainty that people have encountered and survived, right? And the knowledge and understanding that they
Listen,
have, we can still access. Mm-hmm.
listen. My grandmother, who was born in 1908, who better to deal
Mm-hmm.
with the power structure that is
Mm-hmm.
about to come into play, but my grandmother who grew up in that environment, my parents who grew up
Mm-hmm.
in the South in the 30s and the 40s. Who else? Who else
Mm-hmm.
better to lend guidance? And then I think about, my son who transitioned when he was 16. That reminds me to remain
Mm-hmm.
youthful. Who else is going to keep me youthful? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it has to be powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, again, it's a resource. It's a resource that I don't think that we access as often as we probably should. But like you said, all of that knowledge, all of that wisdom, all of the information carried,
Generation
whew,
to generation. And we know
generation.
epigenetics, right? The field that actually studies how things are passed down in our
Oh my
DNA.
goodness.
Mm-hmm.
I would, we could dissect that.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I'm getting goosebumps. All of this information at our disposal,
Mm-hmm.
um, for us to sit with and to tap in with. And again, will also support us in trusting ourselves. When you're surrounding
Mm-hmm.
yourself with people who love you profoundly.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
Yes.
So if you have a day in your day-to-day life where you're not feeling the love, maybe you're in the workplace and you're not feeling the love, maybe you come home and you're not feeling the love, trust me, love is surrounding you always. Love is surrounding you always, and we have, but that is not to say that everyone who had a relationship with someone who has transitioned had a good relationship with someone who has transitioned. So it might
Mm-hmm.
also be an opportunity to clean that relationship up.
Mm-hmm.
And there are individuals that that I know and love that have transitioned, and I'm like, this is probably the only way this relationship was going to be repaired, you being on that side, because it wasn't getting
That's
repaired
true.
on that side.
Yes.
So now that you're on that side, let's talk about fixing it. Show me
Uh-huh.
what I need to see so I can see my part in it, I can see your part in it, and we can fix it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And as you shared before, like sometimes the human is a barrier, right? And once you've like transcended the human realm, all of this information and understanding is open to you. So now you're able to connect with that person in a different way, in a more like in a deeper
Absolutely.
way than you could have on earth. Yeah.
Listen, there are people
Mm-hmm.
right now that I'm fussing and feuding with, and the only thing that's separating us is our humanness. That's the only thing.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that prevents us from getting to a space of forgiveness is our humanness. So yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Now that they're on the other side, it's like, okay, I bear the weight of still having my humanness. Show me what I need to see. Because
Mm-hmm.
we cannot forget that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And so,
Mm-hmm.
show me what I need to see that is preventing me from reaching my sacredness. Because now
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'm sick of myself. Sometimes it's like you are damaging a perfectly good relationship just because you want to be right, just because you don't want to say sorry, just because you're hurt. Like, I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
what we do. It's
Mm-hmm.
what we do.
Mm-hmm. And so, as we're winding down tonight, I know it's been over 2 hours. So, thank you.
Listen, I could
Um,
talk to you for hours, and I'm so appreciative of everyone who has stuck with us. This is
yes.
just, in many ways, I think this is a way for us to honor and acknowledge that we are transitioning into something new. And we
Hmm.
want to do something for ourselves, for one another. Um, and so if we have a little bit of time, maybe a couple of minutes, for all of us to just take some deep breaths wherever we are,
Hmm.
recognize all of the energy that all of us have brought to this moment, the questions, the comments, the insights. Some of us have been very vulnerable and stated particular things that have resonated with someone else, and you may not even recognize it. You may never even know how your comment, how your question has inspired someone else listening, either live or on the replay. That's how real connection works. And as we are all transitioning in different ways, at different paces, and in different realities, let us call upon the creative energies that align with the universal love to create something new in each and every single one of us. Something new, something magnificent, something that actually has probably been laying dormant within our spirit and within our soul, down at the cellular level, that we are now calling for, that we are now raising within our consciousness, so that we are aware of the choices and the decisions that we make from this moment forward, that take us forward, that move us into positions of power for all of our highest good. Recognizing that there may be entities who, for whatever reason, are making it their mission in life to be disruptive, to be demeaning, and to not recognize the greatness within themselves, so therefore they cannot recognize it within us. Let us also envelop them with this healing energy so that they do not cause the destruction that they so value, so that each and every single one of us can transition into a higher, elevated being where we are more loving, where we are more compassionate, where we are more forgiving, where we are more understanding of ourselves and others, recognizing that no one has to lose in order for us to win, that all of humanity can win together when we recognize and realize the power that we possess and how that power can be used for good. And as sure as our inhale and exhale will take us from one moment to the next, sure will the grace and mercy that all of us have been afforded, that we sometimes forget, knowing that it would not be wise for us to ask for anything that we are not willing to give and for others to receive. Let us pull down and destroy anything that gets in the way of us having compassionate hearts. Let us be more mindful of the words that we speak, the thoughts that we create, and the actions that come from the places deep within us. We are so grateful to know that we possess that level of power within us. And we are so grateful that the universal life force that we call love, that we call God, that we call the divine, that we call the creator by so many different names, has entrusted us with this power. Mm. Let us move into this new experience of 2025, free from fear. Let us open up our hearts and, if necessary, close our mouths so that our minds can also be open to the possibility that we are going to learn something new, we are going to create something new, that we are just who we need to be for this new experience. I'm grateful. I am grateful. I am grateful.
Thank you for that.
Thank
Beautiful.
you, Price.
Beautiful. I want to,
You.
yes. Your last Mama Meditations on YouTube, at least, is this Sunday.
Mhm.
Do you want to say anything about that as we wrap up
Well,
tonight?
I entitled it completion, but
Mm.
there is everything within me is feeling more like celebration because I am
Mm.
so
Mm-hmm.
incredible. I'm grateful that I did the thing that I was afraid to do and that I kept telling myself that I didn't need to do, and it wound up being the very thing that I needed to do all along. And I hope that that spirit stays within me. As our good friend said, if we're not doing anything risky,
Yeah.
I want to take more risks. So Sunday might be a risk. I have no idea what we're going to do on Sunday, but it will have an energy of gratitude with it. So Sunday at 1:30 on my YouTube channel. As I said, the channel will probably live or be live for some time, but things are going to only happen in the Evolve community. I'm still building.
Mm-hmm.
I will be doing a lot of work this weekend to prepare for what I'm calling in. I'm prepared to call in 100 women every month. That seems ambitious, but I'm an ambitious kind of gal,
Yes.
and and yeah, I'm ready to fly. I'm ready to jump. I'm ready to get back to what I know to be my purpose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
None of us knows how long we have, and like I said earlier, I don't want to die with
True.
this thing within me, and so
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I have an opportunity to do what I love to do.
Yes. We look forward to the last Mama Meditations this Sunday on YouTube. After that, they will move to Coach Yolanda's private community. So this is a link to join. But yes, I want to thank y'all so much for being here tonight on this Friday night. I'm just going to read a few last comments. What a powerful conversation. Thank you both for your authentic and radical way of being. Thank you for this.
Yes.
Thank you for being here. Yes. Beautiful conversation. Thank you. Yes. Ashe. And so it is.
And
Mm-hmm.
so it is.
Mm-hmm.
Love y'all. Love every single one of y'all. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Marissa. You just continue to be exactly who you always said that you are. And thank you for being so authentic.
Oh, thank you so much. That means so much. But yes, we appreciate y'all so much for watching. Again, commenting in the chat. If you're watching the replay, please comment below if anything resonated. Please like this video so that it's shared with other people as we embark on 2025 and prepare our spirits, right?
Yes.
Using all of the tools, all the resources that Coach Yolanda laid out for us tonight. So we appreciate y'all being here. But yeah, until next time, bye, y'all. Thank you for being here.
Bye.
Bye.